Hello.
Hello, hello.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Hi. Lovely to see so many of you here already. Fantastic. As you're joining, I'd like to wish you a warm welcome. Um, Camille is joining today from Poland, and I am joining from London in the UK. Please do share with us where you're joining from. It's always wonderful to see such a mixed group in this webinar series. Hi, Maria de Los Angeles. Nice. A special shout out to me. Love that. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining. For those of you who perhaps are new to this webinar series, this webinar will last 1 hour exactly. Camille and I plan to finish in around 45 minutes and then have the last 15 minutes for a Q&A. Let's see how we do. So my only request really is that you put all your questions in the Q&A functionality at the bottom of your screen. Some of you may have it at the top, but please do look for it now. We want to capture all the questions in one place because it's very difficult to see your questions in the chat. We will ask you to share your reflections and your experiences in the chat. But as I say, please do pop your questions in the Q&A. Okay, so today's session is on Provoke. Listen to the conversation, and some of you teachers may recognize this task type from one of our certifications. It's called the Pearson English International Certificate, and this is going to be the focus of the session today. For those who are new today, this is part of a series called the Teacher Training Academy. We talk about a lot of different topics, but in the months of September, October, November, December, we've done a deep dive on this particular certification. I'll repeat the name again. The Pearson English International Certificate. The acronym is PEIC, or as some people say, PEIC. But don't worry if you don't prepare your students for this certification, because Camille is going to talk more broadly about the skill of listening, and he will give you some really, really engaging and meaningful classroom activities, which we really, really hope you'll be able to include in your classrooms across the world. So without further ado, I will hand over to Camille. I'll see you at the end of the webinar, Camille.
Okay, right. Thank you for the introduction, Magda. This is very nice to have you all in my webinar. I've been with Pearson for quite a lot of time, over 10 years, and my role at Pearson is mostly to train teachers, train examiners, write help, especially those teachers who prepare their students for English for Pearson certificates, especially Pearson English International Certificate. And today, well, as you know, we're going to talk about how to provoke with conversations. There will be 4 points on our agenda today. We'll start with this question, how to provoke with conversations, in which we'll discuss some challenges and strategies, some challenges students face, some strategies we can offer when listening to conversations. So just as Magda said, today's session is, well, we will discuss Pearson English International Certificate, but we will mostly focus on generally the issue of listening to conversations in the classroom or in listening to conversations in English. Then Point two will be point two on our agenda will be listen to the conversation, which is actually the name of an item of a task in Pearson English International Certificate. So we will have a look at this task. Just a few takeaways to finish our webinar, and obviously a Q&A session that Magda mentioned. So we're going to talk about listening today. So let's start with the first question, and well, we'll see how our interaction can go, right? So my question is, what was the last thing that you listened to in English, right? If you could share your ideas, something that you listened to recently in English. So I'm looking at my chat box. This is going to be our interaction between us. There will be some questions I'm going to ask during this webinar. So let's see, right? What do we have? Music. So I understand songs, a webinar, a film, podcast, recipes, right? Audiobook, YouTube videos, right? Podcasts, football commentary, okay, and YouTube video and videos. Great. So quite a lot of things that you have listened to. They actually, in a lot of situations, you actually had to, I suppose, listen to conversations. And as you can see from this title, we're going to have a look at this specific situation, this specific listening to conversations. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your ideas. So let's move on and let's see how we can provoke with conversations, how we can provoke our students, obviously, with conversations. So let's discuss some challenges. What would you say? And again, if you could share your ideas in the chat box. So what's the biggest challenge your students face when listening to conversations in English? What would you say? What are your ideas? What about students now, right? Put yourself in students' shoes and connected speech, accent. Right, exactly. Pronunciation, lack of necessary vocabulary, losing focus, not keeping up with pace, being familiar with accent, right? Pronunciation, reduced forms, great. Memory, they don't understand the first time. Thank you, Felicia, right? Many unknown words. Speakers' individual speech habits. Exactly. Right. So you've mentioned quite a lot of challenges, right? So that seems like a very challenging activity, listening to conversations, and obviously it is, right? We all know we're all teachers here, so we all know that how challenging listening, generally listening, and specifically listening to conversation is. I wanted to suggest, and I'd like to focus on four specific challenges connected especially with listening to the conversations, because listening to conversations requires sometimes very specific skills that might be a little bit different from listening to some monologues, for example. And the four challenges that I suggest that, from my experience as a teacher, seem to be the most problematic for my students, and I have to deal with them a lot, would be, and you mentioned practically all of them, right? For me, when it comes to conversations, it's the first challenge would be this rapid and overlapping speech, right? So that this quick pace of a conversation, interruptions, right? Changing topics, and they make comprehension hard, right? So you mentioned that, for example, students losing the pace, that might be a problem for them. You also mentioned that, right? So you have very similar experience, obviously, as teachers, that in conversations, especially those conversations that are held by native speakers, natural conversations, there is a lot of connected speech, a lot of reduced forms, right? Words blend, sounds drop, and that's a real challenge for our students, and they have to face it, right? And our task is to help them overcome that challenge. Another, also mentioned by some of you, a lot of you mentioned vocabulary. I would say that some specific vocabulary poses a problem to my students, especially this idiomatic informal language, that some everyday expressions, idioms, they often confuse my students, and that they somehow prevent them from understanding conversations, and somehow make them fail in listening comprehension tasks in class. And last but not least, I would say that for my students, my experience is that they want to really try and catch every word. This is somehow right, their attitude that I have to understand everything, right? So instead of understanding the overall meaning, just getting the idea of what the conversation is about, they feel a little bit disappointed, right, when they cannot understand every single word, and then somehow that might influence or might have some impact on their motivation. So this also, I would say, especially with conversations, because they go so fast, this is a challenge for my students. So let's have a look at these challenges and maybe some strategies, how to face the challenges, how to help our students overcome those challenges. So let's have a look at this first challenge that I mentioned, that when we listen to conversations, when students listen to conversations, they have to face fast overlapping speech, right? So this is what happens in natural, everyday spoken language, especially in conversations. The pace is very fast. Speakers interrupt, talk over each other, right? Which makes things even more complicated for students of English. Topic shifts quickly, right? So they can start talking about something else and then they change topics, and to follow that might be difficult for speakers or learners of English. And yeah, at some point, and you mentioned that, some of you mentioned that in the chat box, that students fall behind and stop listening. They just, as if to say, there's this moment that you can, in class, you can observe that some students simply turn off, right? You stop following because, well, that was all too fast, right? They couldn't follow and they give up. So how can we help as teachers? Oh, obviously, for example, what I do with my students, if I have long conversations, fast conversations that change topics, right, that are very dynamic, I always try to cut it into short pieces, right? That I can repeat listening, so just they can catch the main idea, for example, in every piece. So just processing speed through short, repeated listening. I always talk to my students and I try to focus them on the meaning rather than the transcription, right? The transcript of the listening. So focus on the meaning, get the meaning first, general idea. Don't worry about what's going on in details, right? This is the first step. And well, obviously, with fast speech, what they can do, the students can do, they can listen for key points, discourse markers. They will help them identify how the conversation is going. They will identify those signposts in conversations. So what how to do that in practice, right? Just a little bit, some activity, classroom activity that may help you actually keep your students focused on for discourse markers, actually, that help them manage a conversation, that help them identify which direction the conversation is taking. So, a suggestion for a classroom activity that you can hold in your class. Bingo, right? Bingo activities are very nice, very competitive. Students like them. So, this is a bingo activity. What I do, I give my students a list of conversational discourse markers. And first, I discuss them, right? So there is a list, I don't know, for example, 8, 10, this is up to you. And I discuss and teach, if necessary, the meaning of each one, right? So this is something that you have to do before this bingo, before listening, because they have to know what the discourse markers mean, what function they play in a conversation. Then you give each student or a group a bingo grid. That could be 6 spaces, that could be 4 spaces. This is up to you of how many. It depends on the conversation that you're going to play, obviously, and how many discourse markers there are. And you take a conversation. You can take it from your course book, right? So there are a lot of conversations that are provided by our courseware, right? So you can easily go through the tape script, right? The transcript, and check, right, if this is conversation, if this is dynamic, if it contains a lot of discourse markers. So any conversation will do, especially from your course book, to make it a little bit different, maybe, right? Your work with the course book. And give your students the topic of the conversation that they are going to listen to in a moment, right? What the conversation is about, how many speakers, right? What the situation is. Give them the broad picture of what the situation is, and ask them to choose. For example, if you have 6 spaces, ask them to choose 6 discourse markers from the list that you have just discussed, right? And transfer these discourse markers to the grid. Then you play the conversation. Students listen, right? And when they hear discourse marker, they cross it out or they mark it when they hear the item that they have selected from the list. And well, student with the highest number of discourse markers marked, right, or crossed out, wins the game, right? So that's a competitive, this is a game, right? And that keeps them focused on, well, the direction of the conversation, the discourse markers, on the functions that particular speakers perform in the conversation. Obviously, right, here a lot will depend on some lag because they cannot predict precisely specific discourse markers. This is, well, a little bit might be a little bit random choice, but still you have discussed the discourse markers. They focus on them. They learn how to focus on those functions that the discourse markers play in a conversation. So that helps them manage this quick, fast conversation that changes direction very often. So let's see how it goes. Right. So I have a task for you now. I want you to listen to a conversation actually and select one discourse markers only, right from the list. So there are committee members of a charity that are finishing a debate on how to raise awareness of homelessness in their area. This is what you're going to listen to, right? This is the finishing of a debate, right? And I want you to choose one discourse marker from the list above that you think you will hear. I wonder, right, what you can type this discourse marker in the chat box. Which one? Choose just one discourse marker from the list above. Okay, I can see, in fact, a lot. Actually, frankly, thank you, Jana. Right. Another. What's more, anyway? Okay. After all, anyway, again, thank you, Hadia. Good. Rita, what's more again? Listen, right. So if even if you haven't typed in the chat your discourse markers, think, choose one, right? This is my discourse marker, and let's see who will be lucky today in the bingo, right? So there will be one of them in the discourse in this debate that you're going to listen to. Listen to that.
So you're saying we shouldn't do anything to upset anyone? Shouldn't we be upsetting everyone? Get their attention?
Not really. We want to engage people and draw them in, not push them away.
I can see what you're both saying. Basically, it's a choice between getting lots of attention but annoying people and risking little attention but upsetting no one.
Good, right. So congratulations to all of you who have selected basically you've won bingo, right? And as I said, this is all the matter of luck here, but because there is this procedure in which you teach the discourse markers, talk about them, they focus on them. So obviously, they learn a lot in this activity. So congratulations! I can see Janet now has typed basically. So yeah, some of you did type basically. So congratulations to the winner, to the winners. Right, let's move on to another challenge. Another challenge in conversations. This is this reduced and connected speech, right? That's a problem, and some of you signaled that. What is difficult, right? Students learn in class, did you want to go? But what they hear is, do you want to go? Right? So, and that's a problem for them. Some weak forms disappear in fast speech, or they are so reduced that it's hard to hear them. And students cannot segment the sound stream, right? It's just like one long word, some phrases, for example. What can we do? Obviously, we can make them, we should make them aware of those reductions, those chunks, gonna, due, things like that, so that they're at least aware of those, that these are the words that actually native speakers use. We can highlight those assimilations and elisions. So for that, we would need transcripts, audio scripts, just to show them in which places. For example, two words get together, like when we have a consonant and a vowel, they will get together as if that was one word. So make them aware of these processes. And shadowing is a good idea, right? So make them use this instead of saying, if they say, do you want to go? Teach them to say, do you want to go? Do you want to go, for example? Or if you have a conversation, recorded conversation, you can make them shadow those reduced forms or those elisions, right? Those disconnected speech, and they internalize that, and it's easy for them to understand those later on. So what I would suggest here, yeah, there is a remark from Victoria that they use such words in essays. Yeah, but they might. But if you make them aware that these are the words, these are the forms that are used in speech and natural, informal speech, then obviously they will be aware of that, and they will not use them in essays. But this is, yeah, this is a matter of well, teaching and showing them the differences between registers. So some activity to practice this, to help them face this challenge of connected, reduced forms. This is micro dictations. For this, you take some short clips that contain these reduced forms, like I got to run, see, or something like that. These short clips only, and they you play that for them, and they write down in, well, correct, as if to say, in inverted commas, correct language as full forms on piece of paper. Obviously, you check it, and if this is correct, they get a point. You can repeat 5, 10 micro. These are very, very short clips, so they won't get bored so easily. 5 would be okay, and typically they will like it because this sounds natural. And here there's a tip, a very good tool for that activity would be some AI text-to-speech platforms, right? Because you can design those reduced forms, those phrases exactly as you want them, right? And if you just type text-to-speech AI, you will find a lot of platforms. Some of of them have paid plans, but there are a lot of them available for free. And you can design those micro dictations using NNI text to speech, right? Platforms. There are hundreds of them, right? And they will give you really good results, and you can easily design your own dictation. So let's see how it works, right? Harshita says that ChatGPT is quite helpful, right? Yeah, for example, there are a lot of text-to-speech platforms. I'm sure, if you want, you can easily find one. So let's see how it works. I want you to type TTS Maker. Tina says, right, yes, this is one that is quite good. Right, there are a lot of good. I just don't want to somehow advertise any of them, but I'm sure you will find the one that somehow I don't know, suits you, the one that you like. So let's see how it works. Can you write this phrase, these phrases in the chat box, right? So type what you hear. I mean, in proper English, as if to say, without these reduced forms. So listen to the first one here. Right.
He's kind of busy right now.
Okay, so who can type it? Okay, good. Fantastic. So many correct answers. Good. Right, that was obviously a little bit exaggerated, right? I made it really fast just because, well, I wanted to make it a challenge for my participants, right? It's obviously he's kind of busy right now. Let's try another one. Listen to this and type it in the chat box with the full forms. I mean, correct so-called English.
Did y'all get my message?
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, right. Good, fantastic, great. That was, as I said, that was a little bit exaggerated here, especially the pace of speech here. Yes, that was, did you get my message? That was it. So that's the idea of those micro dictations, short clips in which you focus on some specific reductions, some specific elisions, and you make your students aware of that. And then when they listen to that, when they hear that, it's much easier for them to process that, not to get lost in a conversation which will have a lot of such forms. So yeah, play it, I mean, do it and have fun in your class. Right, then another challenge that I well, would like to focus a little bit on, and something that you mentioned in your in the chat, right? Some of you said vocabulary. I think that most of this vocabulary that is a problem, especially for your B2, B1, sorry, B2, C1 students, would be this idiomatic or very colloquial language that they might not be yet aware of. So students may, well, interpret idioms literally or simply not understand them and misunderstand them by literally translating as if to say the idioms, may miss some implied meaning in a conversation. They can misunderstand some functions like, I know, agreement, disagreement, and they can fail to identify the tone, sarcasm, hesitation, politeness. So these are the things that they fail to identify. And well, the strategies, something that we can do to help them. Teach them, we can teach them strategies for guessing meaning from context, discussing that with them, showing them the context, for example, of an idiomatic expression they can't understand, and how the context can help them get the meaning, get the function of this expression. Not focus on just vocabulary, but also the tone, the intention, what the speakers want to achieve in this conversation. And obviously, if you have a conversation with a lot of colloquial expressions, idiomatic expressions, it's always good to pre-teach, to help them by pre-teaching, introducing them into those. So an activity that I would say is is a nice one that helps somehow highlight especially idiomatic language, but not only, it doesn't have to be idiomatic, but also some colloquial expressions. I call it before and after hunt. What's the hunt? Well, you take a short extract from a conversation. Again, that could be your course book, so you just check the transcript, right? See which conversations would be good for that, and you select some. You select some words or phrases from the conversation. Especially, you can focus, as I said, here you can focus on some idiomatic expression. For example, you take one word from an idiomatic expression or from a phrasal verb, right? And you place it on some separate sheet of paper, small card that they get. It's important that this word that you place on the card must appear only once in the extract. This is very important. And you play the extracts, obviously, and what they have to do, the task is to write down the words immediately before and immediately after those words that they have been given, right? So they focus on this is the way to focus their attention on some for example, expressions, some idiomatic language, some colloquial language, for example, that you want to practice. And then obviously you can discuss that with them once they have created those cards with the word immediately before and after. For example, you can make it competitive, right? And the winner will have all the words spelled correctly. Let's see how it works. There is a task for you now, right? I'm going to play a short passage, let's say. And can you write down the word immediately before and after the word bumped? Right, so listen to this passage, focus and type in the chat the word immediately before, and immediately after the word bump.
Hi, sorry I'm a bit late. I just bumped into Sylvia.
No worries. Look, there's a table over there.
Great. Let's sit down.
Okay. Right, fantastic. Just bumped into, right? Great. So most of you found it really easy, right? That's great. Yeah, but I just wanted to show you this mechanism here, how you focus on, in this case, for example, on a phrasal verb, on an idiomatic expression, bumped in, to bump into, and this way you have on the cards they will have the list of expressions that you can later discuss, right? The meaning of that, right? That this bump doesn't literally mean that you bump, right? But obviously you meet somebody. So that's the idea of this activity, and that keeps them focused, right? Even if the conversation is fast, a lot of colloquial language, idiomatic language, they can stay focused on the words that they've got in the on the cards. Right, and another okay, oh sorry. Another challenge that I wanted to have a look at is, well, last but not least, I call it listening for everything, right? So this is the challenge that students want to grasp everything in a conversation at once, right? Every single word, just identify, translate it into their own language. And, well, this is they very often believe that they must understand every word, that they have to translate mentally, that they cannot miss anything. What can we do? Well, obviously, we should set clear, achievable goals, especially in long conversations, right? Teach selective listening again, make them focus on some keywords, signposting. We've already looked at how it works with discourse markers. show them the difference between gist and detail. So focusing on gist first and then on detail. So to get the general idea of the conversation. And last but not least, obviously, note taking and some help with note taking, like, so, for example, showing them some techniques that using symbols for some common words like and plus stands for and, for example, or an arrow could be the equivalent of then. And so that might also help them to manage, right, this push to listen for everything. So an activity to use with students to somehow help them focus on some specific things instead of the whole well, grasping everything from a conversation. Take some phrases from a course book audio again, so a conversation in your course book, and put them on small pieces of paper and place them in front of a small group of students, right? So you have small pieces of paper, there's a group of students, they are listening to a conversation. And when they are listening to the conversation, they physically grab the card with a phrase, with a word when they hear it. And after that, you can play once again the conversation just to do the regular course book task. But first, you make it competitive. You make them focus on some details in the conversation. Well, you somehow provoke their interest in the conversation, right? So it's a good introduction to a regular course book task. So a task for you. I want you to play. I mean. A form of that, I want you to type plus when you hear the expression stick at it, right? So I will check who will be the first plus in the chat box, right? So I'm going to play a short conversation, and when you hear stick at it, press plus, right? Hit plus. We'll see who'll be the first one. Listen.
Sometimes I just want to give the whole thing up. I just don't feel as though I'm getting anywhere.
Come on, you can't just walk away now after everything you've put into this. Sometimes when you're so involved in something, you can't see just how far you've come. Stick at it, you won't regret it.
Okay.
Maybe you're right.
So that was very quick, right? Let me see who the first one was, and that was Daniela, right? Daniela, congratulations to you. You were the first one to hit the plus. And this is the idea, right? They grab expressions, and this is also could be used for teaching idiomatic expressions. So that brings me to talk a little bit about Listen to the Conversation, which is the name of the Pearson English International Certificate task. Listening to conversation is an important skill for our students, and Pearson has a task in the certificate that actually tests that, and I'd like to have a look at this. So that's a very simple task. I mean, simple in terms of what they do, right? Very, very simple procedure. What they see in the screen, because this is computer-based test, right? So they will see in the screen, what you can see in the slide. They have to listen to a dialogue between two speakers, and there are 3 turns in the dialogue. It's a little bit shorter for lower levels. That will be 3 to 12 words for B1, B2. That will be a little bit longer for higher levels, C1, C2. That will be 5 to 15 words. And the task basically assesses the understanding of the meaning, context, and detail in a very short dialogue. So that's a short exchange they listen to, and they have to answer a question. So if you want, you can have a look at a short YouTube video that presents. If you scan the QR code, you will get directly in, because that's a longer video, but with this QR code, you will get directly to this part of the video that is devoted to listen to the conversation. And well, let's see how it works. So let's start with B1 level, so that you will see how it works. You will see, you will listen to it, and well, let's see what your answer will be. Let's check if you can take B1 level. So listen to it.
Could you pass?
Listen to it, and what's the answer? Listen.
Could you pass the milk?
It's run out, but there's some cream left. That'll be fine, thanks.
What does the woman give to the man?
Uh-huh. That's the question. Good. Right. Fantastic. Yeah, that was obviously, as I said, that was V1. So just to show you how it works, the answer is cream. Yes, thank you. Congratulations to all of you who typed cream. Let's see C1 task. It's obviously a little bit longer, as you have seen, right? So we will have 5 to 15 words for every turn. And obviously, well, it's a little bit faster, as you will hear. So listen to C1 level and the same story, right? Give me the answer.
Wow, this shed is a complete mess. I'll grab the lawnmower and get started.
I'll tidy it now. Once I've finished, I'll trim the hedges too, if you like.
Thanks, that'll be handy. And thanks for planting the tomatoes this morning too.
What gardening task is the woman about to do?
Wow, this shed is a complete mess.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Okay, so what's the answer here? Okay. All right, that proved a little bit more challenging. So let's have a look at the sample response, right? So this is a sample response now because the response is given orally, right? They speak, right? They are asked to give concise, short phrase that will answer the question, and the answer would be
mow the lawn.
Yeah, mow the lawn, right? This is based on the woman's statement that she'll grab the lawnmower and get started, right? And that this answer shows accurate understanding of the question, right? So this is what it looks like. There is a short exchange and a question after the exchange, so students have to give the answer orally from the memory. Well, when it comes to how the assessment, obviously, well, 0 points go to those students, those test takers who give incorrect response or something irrelevant, or there is silence or non-English, something like that. That's 0. And obviously, 1 goes to those who answer accurately the question presented in the recording. And it's important, right, that they have to use the correct word or correct phrase. So, for example, in this B1, that was just 1 word, cream. Here, obviously, the whole phrase is the correct answer to that. So this is a task that tests these skills of listening to the conversation. These are short conversations, but there will be all those elements, all those challenges that we have discussed today. So what about it? How to approach a task? You now know what the task is like. We looked at that. So, how to approach the task? What would you say if you were to give some advice, or if you were to get your students ready for this kind of task? Short exchange, they listen to, and they have to orally give answer. So, what are your suggestions here? So, how to approach the task? Take notes. Yeah, right. That might help. Although you have to remember that that's a very, very short exchange. But some basic, just taking down a few words would help. Yeah, taking down keywords. Right. Thank you, Mariana. The question should be asked first. Yeah, that's obviously what we are used to in course books, that first students see the question, but in real life, very often, yeah, you listen to something and then somebody asks you about that. In real life, you very often don't know what information you will have to process, right? So this is a skill in itself, as if to say. So that's why it's done like that. Predicting answer. Go through the question sheet first, right? Obviously, they in this task they don't have any question sheet. They just listen to a short exchange. That's why it's short. They don't have to remember. I mean, a long conversation. This is just 3 lines, no 3 turns, no longer. Focusing on keywords. Thank you, Iris. Avoiding distractors, right? Absolutely so. underlying keywords. Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. You've got a lot of fantastic ideas. Thank you for your ideas. Just a few ideas from me. Yeah, obviously your students must be ready to listen actively to both speakers, right? So just be very concentrated and active, right? And they have to remember that this is a short exchange, so they don't have to worry, right? There are usually three turns, right? So it's not long. They can easily, well, this is a manageable chunk, I would say, of conversation. Some this is something you can do with your students, build their vocabulary, learn teaching common words related to everyday topics, because these are the topics, as you have seen, right? That was a conversation over a breakfast or a conversation in the garden, right? So everyday topics. The answer, the detail that you need, can appear at any point, right? That could be at the beginning, that could be at the end. So they have to stay focused throughout the whole short conversation. Yeah, and it's good if they know it. And it's the questions, as you have seen, the questions will mostly deal with some content words, objects, also names, but actions, right? So these are the things that they would have to focus those details. And last but not least, it's important because the answer is given orally here in this task. They have to say the word with the correct pronunciation, stress, intonation, and the answer should be concise. So it's best if this is just a phrase or just one word is enough, right? It's not supposed to be the whole long sentence. Just one word or one short phrase to the point is enough in this task. So this is what it looks like. This is this listen to the conversation task in Pearson English International Certificate. One of listening, so-called listening tasks in the certificate. The one that focuses specifically on understanding conversations. And this is the one that focuses on something that I've been today, on this skill that is quite specific, listening to conversation, that I've been trying today to talk about, right? And discuss some challenges. So this is a time for some takeaways, some things that I'd like you to take home with you. That listening problems are not necessarily, especially when it comes to conversations, not necessarily about vocabulary as such, maybe colloquial vocabulary, but very often students struggle with reduced speech, the topic shifts, things like that. Not necessarily, especially at higher levels, not necessarily unknown words. Remember to break difficult conversations, long, difficult conversations, into manageable chunks. Use short segments and focus tasks. Focus on gist first, then on detail, right? So to make it easy for them to, well, to face this challenge of fast conversation. Teach them, today we talked about it, teach them to follow conversation structure, right? Help them develop the ability not to lose the thread of conversation by identifying, for example, discourse markers or different functions that are changing throughout the conversation. Right, okay, the last one. Oh yeah, here it is. Make listening interactive and visible, just like the games that I suggested. I know bingo grids, grabbing phrases, word hands, right? They turn listening into active skill rather than just passive comprehension. So that will always be a good idea. So some, let's call it homework. Next 2-3 classes, what you can do, what I suggest you do. Take one conversation from your course book, right, and design a before and after hand, or some colloquial synonym hand, something that I showed you today, where they have to hand for words immediately before and after a given word. So that's one task. Teach your students at least 3 reduced forms. I don't know, wanna, lemmy, bout, something like that. Especially those that you think they might not be aware of. teach your students 3 new conversational discourse markers and play with them discourse marker bingo that I showed you today. That's another task. And, well, last but not least, if you haven't used it yet, so choose a text-to-speech platform online that you like and find the one that somehow suits you and record a short dialogue for your students to, in which you can, for example, ask them to understand the gist of this dialogue, just to practice this using this tool, and because it gives you a lot of opportunities to actually design listening comprehension tasks the way that you really want them to be. So that's it. Now over to you, Magda, because now this is the time for some next steps, not next 2-3 classes, but next steps in your teacher academy.
Great. Thanks, Camille. Okay. Well, first of all, yeah, huge thank you, Camille. All the thanks are coming in the chat, which is lovely to see. It's been really interesting for me to hear about some of the challenges our learners face, and what we can do in the classroom. Your wonderful creative ideas, as always, to help build this skill. It is an important skill, of course. We listen every day, as the icebreaker at the beginning of the webinar showed us. And also, it is a skill that, of course, as a result, is tested, right, within the curriculum. And then also, as adults, we're tested on this skill as well when we want to migrate or, study overseas, etc. So really, really an important session. So thank you. We will go to Q&A in a moment. I just wanted to say that in the next 24 hours, expect a survey link from Zoom. I'm actually working to kind of coordinate and plan next year's webinar series. So I would really love to hear from you. What are your challenges in the classroom? What do you want us to help you with? Are there any particular Pearson products you would like to learn more about? Please do share your feedback, and then hopefully it will help me to incorporate it into the next year's schedule. Please do sign up for the last webinar of this year. It's coming up in December. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on a trip, so I won't be able to host that webinar. But we have a colleague who will be hosting, and Camille will, of course, be the presenter for that webinar as well. So just a quick reminder that you must attend all 4 of the Provoke webinars live to get your certificate. If you attend 7 of the webinars across the year, you will also receive a certificate and a Credly badge. Yes, I just want to kind of set expectations. Do not expect a certificate at the end of this session. Okay, you need to attend all 4 webinars in the Provoke series. Okay, Camille. So I've been quite busy. I've had a few questions in the Q&A. However, one question, Camille, came in the chat very early on. I think the teacher perhaps it didn't quite catch my instruction, but it's a really good question. Okay, so I just want to read it out loud, and then I'm going to give my opinion, but feel free to come in as well. So the question is it important, the English level of the listening material that you are using? I mean, how do we know that the material is appropriate for our learners? We obviously have the CFR, A1, A2. So I've been thinking a little bit about this question, and I do agree that the listening material is very, very important. Especially when learners are developing their listening skills. Yeah. If the material is too difficult, then of course students become frustrated and they perhaps stop listening. And if it's too easy, they simply don't improve. So I think it's a great question because the goal is to provide a listening input that is challenging but also understandable. So I think the two kind of main things for me to that I look out for is definitely vocabulary load within the listening. So I kind of read the transcript, I look at the kind of words that are mentioned, and then because I know the descriptors of the CFR and the GSC very well, I'm able to kind of differentiate. And also, of course, the speech speed and the clarity of delivery as well in the audio. I must, before I hand over to Camille to answer this one, I must also just kind of mention the global scale of English teacher toolkit that we
Yeah,
have on our
exactly.
website, because you can type that into Google. So just repeat again, the Global Scale of English Teacher Toolkit, and you can select the skill of listening. You can select the audience, so who you're teaching, adults, primary, secondary, and also the desired GSC level, right? The kind of CFR equivalent is there as well to help you. And then you get to see all the objectives, all the listening outcomes, everything that they should be able to do at that level. And if you take one of those, you might be able to find a listening text that is suitable. Okay, and I think that's going to be of value. Over to Camille.
And this teacher toolkit that you mentioned has this great tool in which you can load a text, and that gives you the idea of what level this is. So if you have the transcript, for example, it will give you on this, well, on the level the language only, obviously. That will give you the idea what level language is in this listening. But obviously you have to also be careful with how this is delivered. Delivery is another issue. You mentioned, Magda, speed. Another thing I would say here, this is also you have to turn attention to accents that are used, right? So it's always a little bit. I mean, typically that depends on where you teach, but typically it's a little bit easier with standard accents. I know some standard British American rather than some local. So that's another thing that you have to look. But this tool that gives you the idea of the language is also very good.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, someone has just asked me for the link, and I will just pop it in the chat because I think it is really valuable. So
Yeah,
do,
that's a great tool.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Can someone just give me a thumbs up if that's working for you? You'll be
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to see it. Okay, great. So one more question. We've got three more, and I want to answer Hakim's question live because again, I think it's really on topic. It's very relevant, and I think the answers can be useful for all the teachers in the webinar. So I'm just going to read it, Camille, out loud. How can we make sure that the students catch all the provocative elements in a certain conversation, especially somehow long ones, in a view of the fact that some of the students can't even watch the whole length of these short reels? They're rotting their brains. Oh, I'm not sure if that's appropriate in this context, but it's a very, very good expression. And how can we frame students in order to not focus on areas that are not relevant to the learning objective? So I think I'll give a quick response first of all, just to give you some thinking time. But for me, I agree. Specifically in the context of the Pearson English International Certificate, they don't have to understand everything, right? They just need to be able to pick out the correct word or short phrase, as we discussed today. Equally, when we're listening to the news, I don't catch everything, even though I'm a native speaker. I do kind of pick out the kind of the most important information to me. So I think to help students catch those essential elements, even with their limited attention spans, you could break up the conversation potentially into kind of smaller sections. I would also give highly focused tasks, really. So, not what was the listening about, but really targeted questions. Camille mentioned listening for specific information. So you're able to encourage students to pick out that key information. And then really teaching guiding them to the exact points that matter. Perhaps saying, today we're not going to focus on any of the details. We're just going to focus on how the speakers are feeling. Yeah. What are the emotions behind what they're saying? And that's really going to target them on a specific area. Over to you, Camille.
What I also do in my classes, for example, if I know that they have to get some function, for example, or some idea from a conversation, and I know that the key for them is some phrase or a sentence, even if it's well relatively not difficult, but I ask beforehand my students what this means, right? For example, and that somehow highlights the moment. And when they hear that in a conversation or in a listening comprehension task, they automatically, even without consciousness, they will somehow turn attention to this specific phrase because they have just heard it from a teacher that has been just discussed, and somehow unconsciously even they catch it, and they can focus on that. So that's also another technique, right? And also the hands that I mentioned are great for that.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure, Camille. I love discussing all of these topics with you, and thank you for your questions. So just to finish, Camille, if you can move to the next slide, just two things. Zoom will send the link to the survey, so I'm really pleased that you are keen to give your opinions, your experiences. But please just wait 24 hours. Zoom sends that, not me. Okay, so just hold tight. That will appear in your email. Do check your junk mail. And then finally, Iris, it's a really good question. All the recordings to all the webinars this year are on our Teacher Training Academy webpage, which is essentially the same web page where you sign up for these webinars. Underneath each one, you will see ended, available in recording, and you click that and it will take you to the recording. So there are also webinars on that page. If you scroll down right to the bottom, you'll see past webinar series from 2023 and 2024. So lots of Christmas webinar watching if you so wish, okay? But you may have better things
Yes,
to do.
that's a great idea.
Uh, okay, so it's we've just overrun by 2 minutes, Camille. So I'll close there. A huge thank you, as always, for your
Thank you.
time, your energy, your activities, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Okay.
Thank you for helping us go through this webinar, Magda, right? You were all the time behind the scenes, so thank you for
Oh,
that.
so welcome. We're a good team, I think. Okay, bye everyone.
Right.
Have a lovely rest of the day wherever
Thank
you
you.
are in the world. Bye bye.
Bye bye.